Picture this. You're reaching into your freezer, grabbing a bag of shrimp to whip up dinner, and then a chilling thought hits: you might be holding radioactive seafood. It sounds almost impossible, but for thousands of Americans across 18 states, this is not fiction. The FDA has just expanded a recall of frozen shrimp imported from Indonesia after laboratory tests detected traces of cesium-137, a radioactive isotope that's been linked to long-term health concerns. What makes this situation even more alarming is that these shrimp weren't hidden in some obscure store. They were sold at major retailers like Walmart under well-known brands including Great Value, Sandbar, and Arctic Shores. Consumers nationwide could have unknowingly brought these products into their homes. The FDA has stressed that the detected radiation levels are below the federal threshold for intervention, yet the shrimp were processed under conditions that may have exposed them to contamination. Because of this, authorities are advising people not to cook, eat, or even touch the affected shrimp. The recall isn't just about one shipment or one brand. It spans 2 U.S. companies, multiple private label brands, and dozens of lot codes. The contamination was discovered thanks to routine inspections by U.S. Customs and Border Protection at ports in Los Angeles, Houston, Savannah, and Miami. Without these screenings, this issue could have gone unnoticed, reaching even more households. Experts warn that while the immediate health risk may be low, exposure to radioactive substances, even in small amounts, can pose long-term dangers, particularly to children, pregnant women, and people with weakened immune systems. Imagine thinking you're making a simple shrimp dinner, only to find out it could have hidden risks that no ordinary consumer could detect at home. This is the story of a recall that keeps growing, the behind-the-scenes science of food safety, and the steps every consumer needs to take to protect themselves. And the question is, how much seafood in your freezer might actually be safe? So how did this radioactive shrimp end up on shelves in the first place? The story starts halfway across the world in Indonesia at a seafood processor called PT, Bahari Makmur Sejati, or BMS Foods. According to FDA reports, some of their frozen shrimp were processed in conditions that could have exposed them to cesium-137, a radioactive isotope. Now, don't panic just yet. The detected levels were far below the federal limit of 1,200 becquerels per kilogram. The sample tested at around 68.48 becquerels per kilogram, which sounds technical, but here's what it means. While it doesn't pose an immediate emergency, it's still a violation of food safety laws. Why? Because the shrimp were prepared, packed, or held under insanitary conditions, which could allow contamination to occur. The FDA doesn't take chances with food that could compromise public health, which is why they issued the recall. The recall began quietly. In July, U.S. Customs and Border Protection flagged shipments at 4 major ports: Los Angeles, Houston, Savannah, and Miami during routine inspections. The FDA then stepped in to test the shrimp in its labs. The moment the results came back positive, even at low levels, the agency immediately recommended a voluntary recall. Think about it. Millions of frozen shrimp were already on their way to U.S. grocery stores, ready to be picked up by unsuspecting families. Without the strict inspections and coordination between CBP and the FDA, these products could have reached homes nationwide, putting consumers at risk. But the story doesn't end there. As authorities traced the distribution, it became clear this wasn't an isolated batch or a single store. Multiple brands, different packaging, and 2 U.S. companies were involved, creating a web of affected products across 18 states. The scale of the recall shocked both regulators and consumers alike, and it raises a bigger question: how often do potentially dangerous imports slip through unnoticed? And while the FDA continues investigating, they've blocked any further imports from BMS Foods, tightening the safety net. But the reach of this recall shows just how fast a food safety issue can spread. Once the investigation expanded, it became clear that this wasn't just one brand or one store. It was a sprawling network of products that had already made it into freezers across 18 states. 2 U.S. companies were at the center: Beaver Street Fisheries in Florida, and Southwind Foods. Beaver Street handled Walmart's great value frozen raw shrimp sold in 2-pound easy peel bags, while Southwind Foods distributed multiple brands, including Sandbar, Arctic Shores, Best Yet, First Street, and Great American, reaching stores from California to Virginia. The FDA released a detailed advisory listing lot codes, best buy dates, and UPCs for consumers to double-check. For example, Great Value Easy Peel Shrimp included lot codes like 800-55401 and 800-55381, with best buy dates in 2027. Meanwhile, Southwind's recalled products spanned shipments sold between mid-July and early August, covering states like Minnesota, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. Why so much detail? Because in food recalls, precision saves lives. Even a single mislabeled package could expose someone to contamination. The FDA made it clear. Check your freezer, match the UPC and lot code, and if your shrimp is listed, do not cook or eat it. Toss it or return it to the store. It may sound tedious, but this is exactly how public health agencies prevent widespread exposure. And it's not just Walmart or niche brands. The recall rippled through multiple grocery chains, highlighting how quickly a single contamination source can affect national distribution networks. From supermarkets in Texas to co-ops in Pennsylvania, families were suddenly realizing that what seemed like a routine frozen shrimp purchase could actually be part of a nationwide safety alert. But the story doesn't stop at identifying products. The scale of the recall raises bigger questions. How many more imported foods might be processed under risky conditions without consumers ever knowing? And what safeguards are actually in place to prevent another incident like this from happening in the future? The story takes a deeper turn when you look at how the FDA even discovered this issue. It all began back in July, when U.S. Customs and Border Protection flagged frozen shrimp shipments arriving at major ports in Los Angeles, Houston, Savannah, and Miami. Something unusual showed up in the routine screenings: traces of radiation. Not high enough to trigger immediate alarm, but enough to warrant closer scrutiny. Laboratory tests by the FDA confirmed the presence of cesium-137, a radioactive isotope with long-term health concerns if exposure is frequent or uncontrolled. The shrimp tested at 68.48 becquerels per kilogram, far below the federal threshold of 200 BQ/kg. Yet the agency noted that the shrimp had been prepared, packed, or held under insanitary conditions that could have allowed contamination. It was enough to put the FDA into action, blocking further imports from PT. Bahari Makmur Sajati, the Indonesian processor at the heart of the issue, and recommending recalls for all affected lots. The timeline of the recall shows just how quickly federal agencies moved once the risk was identified. By August 14th, the FDA added the processor to Import Alert 99-51, effectively halting shipments from the company. Within a week, both Southwind Foods and Beaver Street Fisheries began voluntary recalls, covering 9 and 13 states, respectively. By August 25th, the recalls spanned 18 states, affecting multiple brands across major retailers like Walmart, and raising questions for millions of consumers about what they had in their freezers. This section isn't just about dates and regulations. It's about how federal oversight works to protect the public. It's a rare glimpse into a process that normally goes unnoticed, yet it can make the difference between contaminated food reaching dinner tables or being intercepted before anyone gets sick. And the lesson for consumers is clear. Even when products meet federal radiation limits, handling errors or lapses in safety protocols can create hidden risks that are only caught through careful monitoring. Now comes the part that hits home for viewers. What should you actually do if you've bought any of these shrimp? The FDA and CDC are clear. Don't cook, don't eat, and don't serve any of the recalled products. Even if the shrimp looks normal or was frozen for months, the risk isn't worth it. The first step is to check your freezer. Look for the affected brands, including Walmart's Great Value, Sandbar, Arctic Shores, Best Yet, First Street, and Great American, along with their UPC codes and lot numbers. The FDA advisory page has a detailed list to help you confirm if your shrimp is part of the recall. Once identified, you have two safe options: return the shrimp to the store for a refund or throw it away. If you choose the latter, make sure it's securely sealed in a bag to prevent accidental exposure or contamination. It's also recommended to wash and sanitize any bowls, utensils, storage containers, or surfaces that came into contact with the shrimp. And of course, always thoroughly wash your hands after handling any potentially contaminated food. For anyone who might have already consumed the shrimp, especially pregnant women, older adults, or those with weakened immune systems, it's important to watch for symptoms of exposure. While the radiation levels detected are low, vigilance is key. Contact your healthcare provider if you have concerns or experience unusual symptoms, even something as seemingly minor as persistent nausea or dizziness. This section underscores a simple but urgent message. Safety starts at home. Millions of consumers shop for frozen shrimp without a second thought, but a small lapse in processing can ripple into a nationwide recall, leaving everyday shoppers to make critical decisions. Paying attention to recalls, even when the product seems fine, is what keeps you and your family safe. And it's a reminder that food safety is everyone's responsibility. What makes this recall even more important is the way it shows federal food safety systems at work, and why staying informed matters. The FDA didn't just stumble upon this by accident. It all started with U.S. Customs and Border Protection catching signs of radiation in frozen shrimp shipments at major ports, including Los Angeles, Houston, Savannah, and Miami. From there, the FDA conducted rigorous lab testing, confirming cesium-137 contamination in one shipment. Even though the radiation levels were far below the threshold that would trigger an immediate health alert, the FDA treated this as a serious risk. Why? Because food safety isn't just about reacting, it's about prevention. By identifying potential hazards early, blocking future imports from the Indonesian supplier, and coordinating voluntary recalls with multiple U.S. companies, the agency minimized what could have been a much larger exposure. This chain of events highlights something viewers rarely think about. Every frozen shrimp bag on a grocery shelf has passed through a complex system of checks, inspections, and regulations. When something slips through, even at low levels, it can have consequences that reach thousands of consumers across dozens of states. It also demonstrates the speed and scope of modern recalls. In just a few weeks, the situation went from initial detection in ports to recalls spanning 18 states and affecting multiple brands sold at Walmart, Kroger, and other major retailers. The investigation is still ongoing, leaving experts and regulators on alert for any additional contaminated shipments that may surface. For shoppers, the takeaway is clear. Paying attention to recalls, checking product labels, and following FDA guidance isn't just a suggestion. It's the difference between staying safe and unknowingly exposing yourself to potential risks. And as this story unfolds, it serves as a reminder that food safety is an ongoing process, not a guarantee, and vigilance at home can make all the difference. The implications of this recall go far beyond a single bag of frozen shrimp. It raises a bigger question: how safe is the imported seafood sitting in your freezer? Even when radiation levels are low, the fact that these products were processed under potentially unsafe conditions has left experts and consumers questioning the entire supply chain. Imported seafood travels thousands of miles, passing through multiple processors, distributors, and storage facilities before it reaches grocery shelves. Each step introduces opportunities for contamination, whether from bacteria, chemicals, or, in rare cases like this, radioactive isotopes. While agencies like the FDA and CBP are constantly monitoring shipments, incidents like this highlight that no system is infallible. For consumers, awareness is key. Checking expiration dates, UPC codes, and recalling FDA advisories can make a huge difference in preventing exposure to contaminated food. Even more, this recall illustrates the hidden work happening behind the scenes. Inspectors, lab technicians, and regulators analyzing every suspicious shipment to catch problems before they escalate. But it's not just about caution, it's also about accountability. The FDA has already blocked imports from the Indonesian supplier, and the companies involved have voluntarily recalled affected products. Still, questions remain. How many other shipments could be affected? Could other seafood processors have similar issues that haven't been detected yet? This ongoing uncertainty adds a layer of tension for anyone who consumes frozen shrimp or seafood regularly. It's a reminder that food safety is not just a headline, it's a personal responsibility, requiring vigilance, informed choices, and a bit of skepticism about where your meals come from. And with this story still developing, the next updates could reveal even more surprising details about how far-reaching the contamination might be. This recall isn't just a warning about one shipment of shrimp, it's a wake-up call about the hidden risks in the food we often take for granted. Even when products appear fresh and safe, the journey from factory to freezer can hide dangers that aren't obvious at first glance. For consumers, the takeaway is clear. Stay informed, check advisories, and don't underestimate the importance of scrutinizing labels, lot codes, and expiration dates. Small steps, like returning affected products or following FDA guidelines, can protect you and your family from potential exposure. At the same time, this situation highlights how critical oversight, testing, and transparency are in keeping our food supply safe. Regulatory agencies, import inspectors, and distributors all play a role, but the responsibility doesn't end there. Being an informed shopper is just as essential as the precautions taken behind the scenes. As the FDA continues its investigation and recalls expand, we're reminded that food safety is never static. New updates could change what products are considered safe, and keeping up with the latest information could save lives. So, next time you reach for a frozen shrimp bag, take a moment to check, because what's inside your freezer might be more than just dinner. It could be a hidden risk waiting to be uncovered. Stay alert, stay informed, and remember, in today's world, knowledge is your best defense against unexpected dangers in the food you eat.